Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tevora Talks. I am your host, Cash, joined as always by my co-host and partner in cybercrime, Matt Mosley. Happy Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. How's it going, man?
Taco Tuesday. That sounds delicious, actually.
I know, get some tacos. Maybe we can, I wonder if we could find a hack to get some free tacos somehow.
Taco Bell does let you gift tacos, so there might be some sort of hack in the mobile app. I'm not sure.
But you know who could actually fill us in on this topic? We're joined by Manfred Chang. He is one of our lead senior pen testers, and to kind of give a little bit of special polish, he's a real master of his craft at doing physical pen testing, which is a real cool subject. So, Manfred, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us here today.
Hey, everybody. Yeah. Hey, thanks for the intro. Yeah, I like physicals. I like doing physical pen tests. It's a really cool niche area of security. I think that oftentimes goes unnoticed or just not really paid attention to because everyone's so busy securing, their infrastructure from the network side. But yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. I guess, for it to go unnoticed, I guess that's your whole goal, right? To go unnoticed.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, try to sneak in places, and yeah, try not to get caught in the process of doing so.
Yeah. So last time, Matt, you and I were talking with Kevin about just some master guru hacker stuff, and we really kind of go into the physical pen testing, and that's why Manfred came to mind. And we wanted to hear some of your stories. I know you've been doing it for quite some time. You've got a lot of cool stuff. You always tell me about when we link up at the office and we chat. You say, I've been on the phones today trying to get info, or tell me about some cool stuff that you've like broken into an office intentionally, right, with authorization. But I'll kind of pass it to you. I want to hear some of your stories. If you can share something with us.
Yeah. What's the coolest story you got?
I think one of the coolest one was when I pickpocketed some client, and they were pretty much unaware. I just bumped into him at a cafeteria, at the company cafeteria, and then I just grabbed his key card because it wasn't around his neck. And I think being on the other side of security too, I've been an internal or pretty much internal staff at another place I worked at, and you basically they tell you can't have your key card in a certain area. So I figured, use that security training against it. Cause when you see someone with their badge just kind of hanging out, it's really tempting to just swipe it to see if, they'll notice it. And I haven't had any formal training for that either. I just kind of watched a lot of movies, I guess. And then they were saying if you bump them hard enough, their brain basically will focus on where you bump them, and they're not going to know what else hit them, right? And that's essentially how pickpockets in Spain and professional pickpockets, that's how they do it. They just bump into you real hard, and then they're obviously very good and they know exactly where the target is. So yeah, I thought that was definitely one of those cool ones. And then
wait, hold on. Let me ask you. So first of all, where was this? How were you scoping him out? And you knew, and where was his tag actually hanging? Where is the threat area?
Oh yeah, of course. So I think I was just scoping out people that had tags in their belt area.
Were you sitting in the lobby area, or where were you kind of just?
Oh yeah, I just tailgated someone into the cafeteria actually, and that was interesting because no one really asks for your key card in the cafeteria. So I think everyone's just focused on food. Everyone's their guards down, right, when it's lunch hours. So I was just I just saw him getting food. And it was one of those companies that had their own cafeteria.
Yeah.
So he was just he was I guess picking out what he was going to eat. And I go over there, and I had my computer too. So when I swiped it, I basically just put it under, I just switched it to my other hand, which was carrying my laptop. So that just basically concealed it. So I wasn't, putting something in my pocket as I did that.
So it was hanging on his belt. Was it one of these Because I got one of them, where you.
Yeah, it's like there's a clip on.
He's trying to make sure he doesn't get pickpocketed.
I'm like, Manfred's
Yeah.
gonna bump into me for sure at the office now next week.
Yeah, I think putting it in your wallet is a good one if your company doesn't require like identification, like all the times, because that's one place that I guess it's a little harder for pickpockets, but I know professional ones they do it real good, so they can steal your wallet too, and then, I guess you're just out of a wallet. But I think like around the neck too is good, but also I've seen security training awareness where they're like, yeah, if it's lunchtime, you should just put away your badge. So, if you go outside, like you're at a local Starbucks, people don't know where you work. This was obviously a very unique client where they had their own cafeteria. So basically being on premise was basically you're just on their property. So everything's just free game.
Interesting.
So then what did you do? So you got the thing. Then what was your goal of that? Was the goal of that just to get this
Yeah, so actually points of ingress for that particular client was very difficult because they had it's not just like badge to get in. They actually had badge readers monitored by security, right? So security personnel would sit at like, I don't know if you guys ever been to BART, but essentially like they have like one of those gates, right?
The
That
public
reads your car.
transportation in San Francisco.
Yeah, that one. And then they basically like, yeah, they'll badge you in, but there's a security guy there. And the first thing I did was when I got to the client side, I was like, all right, I'm just try and like tailgate someone in. And I set the alarm off. So it was like really loud. And then I kind of panicked and I was like, oh, I forgot my badge in my car. I'm going to go get it. And the security guy was just like laughing at me, which is fine, right? Because, if they're laughing at me, that means they're not super suspicious. They're like, what an idiot. And so I was like the first test. I was just trying to test that point of ingress to see if, I could get an easy win. But then I figured out like the next step was basically like, I definitely needed an employee's badge to get in during business hours. So that's basically what inspired me to just go for someone's badge. So, and I didn't have a cloner on me, so I wasn't gonna walk around. And I think they had custom badge readers too. They were basically like built for their company, and on the badge reader it had like the client's name on it, so it wasn't like a third-party vendor or anything that you would normally see like Proxmox or anything like that. So I just basically like, there's no cloning this. I'm just gonna have to go in.
That's pretty crazy. So you got it, mission success. And what happened to the guy that you pickpocketed? Did you hear any?
I think he figured it out. So once you're inside the building, you needed the badge basically to go from the elevator to the entrances of all the doors. So it was basically just, you got to badge everything. Like you got to badge your way through like all the security controls they have. So at that point, like I went up to another employee and my Mac was acting up at the time. It was like really loud. It was like, I think the thermal throttling was kicking in or something, but the fan was real loud. So I actually just stopped another employee and I hovered, and she had her badge on her desk. So I put my computer, basically I hovered it over her badge by her desk. And I'm like, hey, do you hear this? Like computer, it's like about to break. And she's like, yeah, I would take it to IT. So I took her badge. And then the guy that I initially took the badge from, he called security basically and had it deactivated because he's like, oh no, I lost my badge. So I think the CISO basically like was like, man, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to like check your badge at all times. And then, yeah, I basically used this lady's badge, the newly acquired stolen badge to hop around the area just to see what was good around the building.
Very cool. So I just want to go back to, what movies do I need to watch to learn how to do this?
I watched. I think there's a movie called Confidence. It's a really good movie in my book. I really liked it. But then I watched a lot of White Collar. So maybe
White Collar is a great show.
Yeah. So I binge watched that, and I watched it twice, and yeah, it just like was very inspiring. I was like, that's a really cool job, because I think he turned into an FBI consultant like that, broke into banks and stuff. So
right. Yep.
It's really cool.
Awesome.
So
once you had the sorry, go Cash.
No, what are you gonna say? Go for it, man.
Once you had the second badge, did you get into any, secured areas or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I was just basically running around their office, seeing what I could do. I actually just arrived at my point of contact desk, and then I called them. I was like, hey, I'm in. within like the first day, and he was really happy with the results. And then I guess nothing really out of the ordinary, because then at night he was like, hey, can you try and break in after hours? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then, you know, he left. He was like, he lived far, so he drove home, and by the time he got home, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in again. And this time I just, you know, I asked one of the cleaning custodial staff to let me in, and they basically, you know, they don't get security training, so they were just like, yeah, sure, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
You know,
always
I was wondering, what came to my mind is this must have been obviously a larger company, right? Because if you go up to some random stranger's desk and say, hey, do you hear this noise? Right? You obviously don't know her. She doesn't know you. So I'm assuming would this same kind of tactic work in a smaller company?
I think it completely depends on how small, right? Like at Tevora now, right? Like I go in, I don't know half the people that are supposed to be there or not.
Yeah.
In the past, I pretty much knew everyone, but like, yeah, we got so many new hires, so many interns. Like, I think the larger the company, yes, definitely, it's easier to blend in security through, you know, obscurity from our ends. Like the OPSEC is great, but then, you know, if the company is like 10 people and like that's the 10 people they see, I think that, yeah, it would raise some eyebrows for sure. So yeah, just in context.
Cool. So have you ever been caught?
Trying to think. I think yes. The first physical that we've done, it was in Arizona, and we basically, man, I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was trying to get caught or something. I went up to the guy, and I thought it was like, I basically treated it as a phone pretext. I was like, hey, can you plug this USB in and download this stuff? And then he was just like, who are you? Like, where's your badge? And I didn't have any of that because I tailgated in, but it was cool because we tailgated in like every other day.
So just
so,
1 out of 10 times you got caught. Every other time you're going to go.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, so like, what's the other side? So that's like sneaking into buildings. Obviously, there's the enormous amount of like security issues there, right? You could take files, you could read stuff, take pictures, take a computer. You could do a lot, right? Once you're in, especially after hours, because there's no one there, right? I highly doubt the security people are gonna. I'm sorry, the cleaning lady's gonna or gentlemen are gonna ask about the computer you're taking back with you, right?
Yeah, I think definitely after hours provides you a lot of time to do whatever you want. A lot of the times too, the clients, if they don't secure like their network access controls for like their Ethernet ports, for example, it's going to be like a really easy win because you just plug in, you know, your desktop and then you basically can run an internal pen test from there. And no one's going to be there to stop you. I found out that like conference rooms in particular are very easy to hide out in. You know, no one's going to just hop in a conference room unless they've reserved it. Or you could literally say like, hey, I'm taking a call in here, and you know, they'll like just not bother you. So yeah, I think you can do a lot of stuff. You can do dumpster diving too. Once you're in a place, if the company's new to security, they're not going to like lock their shredding bins, so you can just go in there. And I mean, I guess you can lock pick that stuff too.
For the younger generation that may be listening, explain to them what dumpster diving is.
Oh yeah, actually, it's literally just, you know, going through the trash, trying to see if you can find anything sensitive. In bigger companies, they have different bins. There's bins for confidential information, but sometimes people don't want to throw it in the shredder because it's, you know, too far of a walk. So they just throw it in their recycle bin or something, and you can get in some pretty juicy information. And you know, you can sometimes people will have like passwords on their computers just like taped on there, especially if it's like a security room.
Yeah, 100%. I've done a couple, and that's the first thing I do is check under the keyboard. I swear it's pretty common. I don't know if it's still pretty common at Tevora, but it's pretty common in some of the client places I've been to. And then from dumpster diving, Major Paul and I actually did some dumpster diving. We found some contracts for government contracts for the client, and had a lot of juicy information. So yeah, I'm probably one of the few people that still know what dumpster diving is and has actually done it. Have you done it, Manfred?
Probably not traditionally like jumping into the big dumpsters in the back, but yeah, just like when I go into the client space, if I see trash cans, I'll dig through just to see. you know, when post pandemic, I don't know how great I'd be at that, or how motivated I will to be going through trash.
Nice. Have you ever read a book? I think it was called Non-Tech Hacking by Johnny Long.
No, I haven't. I've been really lazy about reading any books, actually.
So this book's pretty old. Trying to find the copyright date on this, but oh yeah, 2008. But this book has a lot of good stuff in it. It definitely outlines like common tricks for, you know, bypassing, like for example, motion control or motion sensor doors, right? So sometimes you'll badge in, and maybe you've done this trick or not, I'm not sure, Manfred, or if you've heard this, but you badge in, right? But when you're exiting, it'll do the motion sensor to unlock the door to let you out, right? So you can actually take like a can of spray for your computer, like, you know, the where you cleat the duster,
Aerosol,
yeah, and you turn it upside down and you spray it through the crack in the door so that it creates that like kind of smoke or fog look. And what that does is it changes the temperature on the other side of the door so that the motion sensor thinks that you know, a body has just come through because the temperature has changed, and it'll unlock the door that way. And so that book has tons of tricks like that, right? Like in one example, there was a door that has the metal panel over the actual latch on the door, and so that's to prevent like credit. Remember the old like credit card trick where you'd stick the card in and it would unlatch the door, right? And their doors are changed now; they don't do that anymore. But what you can do is if you have like a cord or something, you can actually fish it up from underneath or below or from top, and then pull it and unlatch the door that way, depending on how the door lock is. But that book kind of goes through all that stuff. It's pretty neat. So, have you ever done any of that stuff, Manfred?
So yeah, I haven't done any of that stuff. Probably partially because I haven't had to, but I know Truman, when we go on physicals together, he has done the can air thing. And then I was watching a video in the past, I think it was from the Wild West Hackin' Fest, and there was basically like someone like took a vape, you know, like the popular like, yeah, and then they just like blew like a bunch of vape through the security thing, and then I was just like, what?
That's awesome. Yeah, the old tricks still work, but just new creative ways, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. What else besides movies and shows did you do to prepare to get into physical pen testing and stuff like that?
I think it was honestly just a lot of YouTube videos too. I watched, I think his name's Apollo Robbins. He's a pretty good pickpocketer. He'll be like the one that'll steal like your watch off your wrist without you knowing. But he's given a few TED Talks, so I've watched his talks. And I don't think he does it as a penetration tester at all. I think he just does I think he does magic or something. But yeah, the sleight of hand stuff has always intrigued me. I thought something that's interesting. So if you guys want to get good at like social engineering or like physicals, like, I don't know, I guess magic is another way to get into it as well.
You know, you were saying that thing about like just hide out in the conference room. I don't know why my brain went there, but it made me think of Home Alone 2. You guys remember that movie where the criminals, they hide out in the toy store?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I'm like, how many companies actually like the last person to leave the office? Like sometimes during COVID, I would have to go to, you know, the office really quick to, you know, check on one of our servers or something. And then I would leave, you know, I wouldn't really walk around the whole place to make sure it's empty. So
yeah,
I don't know. Is that a thing? Should companies start doing that? Like who's the last person to check and make sure it's empty? Because like usually after everybody goes home, then it's the cleaning people that come in, right? But then to your point, you know, how would the cleaning people know if this person's still hovering around or sitting at his desk doing work, supposedly as an employee or not?
Yeah, I think that's a really tough, really tough one to substantiate, because I've been at Tevora at like 9, 10, 11 at night, you know, and like that, yeah, it's just hard. I think some companies, like the bigger ones, they have what's called an FSO, which is the facility security officer, and they're basically like I don't know, they hire security guards and they walk through the rooms just to make sure, nothing super suspicious going on. But it's kind of hard if you're against someone that's like super nervous. If someone's like, hey, like I belong here, like no one's going to just question you, right? And a lot of the stuff that we're doing physical pen tests are really just like, very professional places where you're wearing business casual. So once you blend in, I mean, I think the only thing that you would be able to really like question someone would be if he's there after hours is like, hey, can I see your badge? And that's something that's probably done through security awareness training as well. But yeah, that's probably a tough problem to solve too. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think like any place, the bigger the place, it's just hard for you to check everywhere, right?
Yeah. There was a
Yeah.
old episode, I think it was Unsolved Mysteries or something. They were trying to figure out how this guy robbed a bank because there was no alarms that went off or anything like that, right? Well, once they caught this guy, they asked him, what he did, and what had happened was he found that in the safety deposit box room, there's like file cabinets, and they go, along one whole side of the room, and then the other, corner, the same thing, right? But there's a gap in the corner because you can't have a file cabinet in the corner, otherwise you can't open the doors, right? Or the safety deposit boxes. So what he did was he opened up a safety deposit box, went in there to check it, and then he jumped into the corner and he waited until after hours. And then he would get out and he would go through the boxes or whatever. I don't know what he did, pick the boxes or something like that, right? Grab all the stuff that he wanted. And then he went back in the corner until they opened up that day, right, for business. And then he walked out as if he was just a normal customer. So he went in during the day, stayed overnight, and then walked out during the day.
That sounds so. Was there not like some movie based on something similar where he like hides in the walls or something for a long time?
I mean, probably. I don't know.
I feel like that was a movie.
That seems like a pretty vague plot point, but yeah.
I know it's a great plot.
But yeah, I could definitely see that happening. So, I mean, obviously it happened in real life. So
that's pretty crazy.
That's what you should do, Manfred, on your next physical, the long con. See how long you can live in the office.
That'd be interesting. You should document it on YouTube Live. Just see how long it takes for everybody to catch on.
Have you seen those guys that they go around and they'll do forts like in stores?
No.
So they'll go to like Home Depot and Costco and Walmart and stuff, and they'll build forts like in the shelves, right? They'll grab like a bunch of merchandise and they'll carve out like a little hidden area behind everything, and then they'll stay in the store. And there's a couple of them where they like spend the night overnight, like in Walmart, and they'll go grab snacks off the wall and then come back and eat it. And supposedly they pay for everything, but yeah, you should do that, man. See how long you can stay in there. It'd be like that one guy at Google. Did you ever hear about that guy? He wanted to see how long he could just live on campus because they have a gym, a shower, free food in his office.
No, never seen that.
What was his runtime? How long did he get away with it?
No, I don't know. I think it was a couple weeks, but I'm not sure.
That's so funny. I bet all the amenities at Google are, pretty good. You have snacks till you want, whatever. That'd be fine.
100%. But I know that, like you don't really have to go to those great lengths, right, Manfred, to get away with some of the stuff you've done?
Actually, it's funny that you mention it, because there was one time I was just in a staircase and it was really hot and like stuffy, but I was there probably like 4 or 5 hours just waiting for someone to come out because it was the back entrance.
Oh.
So I was just like, I was just kind of camping there and walking around. And the best part was there was cameras, like surveillance cameras that was being monitored too by like people within that. I think the staircase had like another hallway that it went down, and people were monitoring the scary thing. So I had to stay out of sight after like I tailgated someone in. But then I just sat there and like I was real thirsty too. So I was like, I could really go for like a water or something. But yeah, I just basically camped there for like 4 hours to get in. But yeah, sometimes for physicals, that's just what you have to do. You just have to like sit there and wait and just be patient.
So what's the other side of it? I remember the other day you were telling me about, you're trying to get you're like, I'm on the phones all day trying to get info and whatever. So how does that side of it look like? What do you think?
Yeah, so pre-texted phone calls actually are a lot of fun if you can get into them. But basically, you you call them and you impersonate maybe internal IT or a third-party vendor, and then you try to ask for stuff that could be sensitive to them, and that would include like company passwords, or just tell them to run a command, just for arbitrary command execution. Just be like, hey, can you run like a who am I or like a IP config, see how their internal environment set up. And then you can grab their username, and sometimes you can be like, hey, if you could spell out your password for me, that'd be awesome. And some people, they just want you off the phone, so they'll do it. And then there's, you'll get resistance to that client that I was working on that day. I think when I was talking to you was specifically, or just like really security conscious. So yeah, it was actually kind of tough to get people to do it. But I think what was unique about that engagement was the client asked if I could speak Mandarin for the social engineering. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try. And it actually worked. So that was cool.
That's interesting. I wonder, maybe that builds a layer of trust, I guess, possibly. Like, oh, this guy can speak my language. He can't be a hacker. I don't know.
Honestly, dude, I think they had more of the upper hand because my Mandarin is like pretty garbage. So like when I to them, I'm like, dude, I think this guy knows. But I mean, it was just kind of like a check in the box. So, but it was cool. It was really interesting to be able to do that in another language, and I still got like some information. So I thought that was awesome.
So I mean, like, what, you just pick up the phone and call their 800 number, or do you have a number that the client provides? Typically, say, hey, call this line, or how does that?
Yeah, typically the clients will provide it, but I think like in the future, if the client didn't want to, and we want to scope out like discovery into the engagement, we can do that. But just because like the main objective of the test is to focus on like user awareness. So let's say an attacker they already have the number, or maybe it's like an insider threat and they're asking for passwords, then they can get away with that kind of stuff. And there used to be a service that I used that I could spoof numbers. So like, some people, they'll check the caller ID. Ever since that spoofing service has kind of been like not functional for me, I feel like people they don't really check the caller ID. They're like, oh, you're calling me from like, I don't know, a 909 number or something. And they're like in New York. They don't really care. Just like, yeah, it's my personal phone number. They asked for a callback number, and I basically just give them the one that I call from. You can do that with like any VoIP number too. And VoIP numbers are generally recycled. So like, they're not going to find any information on it either.
Yeah, I noticed that actually the other day. I hadn't used my Google Voice number, I don't know, in like a few weeks, and it's pinged me, and I didn't even know that was a thing initially. It said like, hey, we've noticed you haven't had any activity, your number's going to get recycled here any day. And I'm like, oh, no way. It's
yeah,
which is pretty crazy, right? Because what if you've been using that number for a while and boom, it goes to somebody else, and now somebody else can pretty much get all your calls once it becomes active again, if you're like active with that number, right? So that's pretty crazy.
I think it's super sketch too, especially if you have something like that for like multi-factor authentication, because the risks of having multi-factor authentication through your personal phone is if you get SIM swapped, and that's like a very real attack. Actually, it was really prevalent in like 2013, but the industry kind of didn't keep up with that until like recently, and they're like, oh, this is like a big thing that's happening. But yeah, it was like something that was happening way before people realized it was happening. Like people are like, oh, how did this happen? I'm pretty sure like my dad or my friend got like SIM swapped, and they're like, wow, how did they take like $7,000 from my bank account? Or like, how did they buy 2 iPhones with my T-Mobile account? Like, well, dude, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, there's like some security holes definitely where it's just like, well, dang, what do you do? It comes down to like, I guess, human error more than anything.
Yeah, and that's like, it's always going to be there too. I think that human error aspect of security, for phishing and stuff like that, right? You can have the best technical support or best technical controls, but if someone like just kind of like doesn't think about it and just gives someone their password and they're like, oh, this is okay, then I guess, yeah, you could be at risk, or you could be putting your organization at risk. So just be more wary. But then I read like some articles too, because I was doing some research, and it's like, it's pretty much impossible to have people always be vigilant, right? Because then they'll be like tired out. They're not gonna be able to do their jobs because they're so like vigilant and paranoid about everything. And I know a lot of this stuff seems like common sense for us, but I've called like hospitals to do social engineering stuff, and that's just like dude, these guys are like saving lives, and I'm here asking for their passwords. They don't care about their passwords. They're saving like an actual life in front of you. So there is a balance that we have to keep in mind for people in the industry that do, you know, other jobs not security related, and how they cannot be security conscious. And I think like a big one, for instance, is healthcare, right? Because they're focused on saving people's lives, and you know, where they're messing with them, doing our social engineering calls, and they may just not care for, you know, the password stuff, and they're just like, yeah, this guy needs CPR.
Yeah, I know it's like, you know, you come out with some morale, right? But on the other side of the team, I don't want to say the team, on the other side of the, you know, playing field, those guys, they have no morale, right? So they could care less. And hospitals and I guess workers that just have a lot going on, primary targets, they're the easiest ones, just because like what you said, they want to get them off the phone. Like, hey, what do I got to do to hang up right now to get back to my job? He's like, what do you need from me? Yeah, here's my password. Let me go back to saving lives, right? So,
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, I've seen some social engineers like over the phone do that same technique where they make it so much of a hassle for the operator that the operator just wants to get off the phone and take care of the thing as soon as possible to get rid of them, you know.
yeah.
And so this one lady, she actually had a crying baby playing on YouTube, like in loop in the background loudly. And then she was trying to basically add herself to, I think it was a reporter actually who was doing he was doing the story, and he asked her to show her, him how she does it. Right. And she added herself to his cell phone plan because she had this playing, you know, baby playing in the background. She gave this story that, you know, her husband's away on business and she can't, you know, do anything because, you know, he's away and she needs to go get baby formula or something. I don't even know what the story was, but it worked. And the reporter was just flabbergasted, right? But now, I mean, like you said with the hospital, right? The hospital, they have way more important things to worry about than having to deal with answering your, you know, prescription questions or whatever it is that you're hassling them about, right? So they just want to get you off the phone as soon as possible. So I could definitely see how that would play into your favor. So.
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's like, I don't know. And then on the other end, typically the first person, if you were going to go black box style and just start calling random numbers, you know, the customer service guys can't give you the beefy information you want anyway. So I don't know. It's, I guess, but Manfred, I don't know anything that you can give, any tips that you can give the general public here. Some of our, you know, 2 listeners that are listening.
We have 3
Them
now.
know what to do, what not to do at work, how to protect themselves against social engineering, anything that you can shed some light.
Yeah, I think it's some of that stuff is pretty standard. If you see something like that just doesn't feel right, I think it's always good to report that, or, you know, report it to like security. And it's better safe than sorry. And I know sometimes it's like, you know, if there's like an exec, right, they're like, hey, open this door for me, and you're like not down, you can get in trouble. You can just be like, you know, with all due respect, sir, like I'm just trying to make sure that, you know, things are secure. But yeah, I think, you know, it's in the security awareness training. Like a lot of the fundamentals are pretty good points, right? If you see something, say something. But yeah, I haven't really thought too much about that. All my recommendations basically just revolve around security training, security awareness training. Just to have that more often, I think will help. Just, you know, so people have it on top of their heads. And then for the phone phishing stuff, I've seen that word of the day stuff get pretty obscure. So I think like a challenge response kind of solution could help. You know, if I say a word, then they have another thing that they're supposed to say to challenge, you know, the response, and that could work better for phone phishing or against phone phishing. So,
And that
yeah,
word of the
just to
day
think,
is to what, confirm like IT is calling you to do something, or is it just a word
yeah.
of the day in general?
So for my like engagements, some clients will have the word of the day, and basically the idea is if you don't give the word of the day, you're supposed to hang up the phone, but nobody ever does that. So I end up just, you know, I confuse them. I'm like, hey, could you give me the phone of the day or the word of the day? And then they end up giving it to me. So now I have it in case, you know, anyone down the line has it. So then I'll have the word of the day, and, you know, that'll actually instill that false sense of security that other people have.
So you'll ask them to give you the word of the day? Like
Yeah,
you'll
pretty
challenge them
much.
and then they'll just provide it?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty funny.
you're gonna have to word it like in a question. You're like, yeah, can you maybe verify who you are? If you can just give me the word of the day. And some people are bright. They're like, oh, like no, like I can't do that. Like you're the one that's supposed to tell me that. But then other people are like, oh yeah, sure, I know. Like this guy knows what he's talking about. The word of the day. We have one of those. So then they end up giving it to you.
It's apples.
That's pretty funny.
That's
What is
it.
the word of the day? Like, what's an example? It's apples is an actual example.
Yeah, I've seen words like that, like waterfall, but then I've also seen like certain people use like numbers, like a string of characters.
Oh, okay.
So like just a bunch of words. So it could be random.
So I know we're trying to wrap it up, but now I'm just kind of curious about this word of the day. I've heard of this before, but I just wonder, how does a company manage this process? Is it like an app that generates a word every day and everyone has access to that app? Or how do they get informed of it? Is it like an email that's sent out every morning?
Yeah. So they actually generally, I think they just have it on their homepage, like their internal company site, and they just have some script that has, the word of the day.
Okay.
And I think it's universal, all their locations.
Got it. So it's like on the intranet or something like that. Cool. Yeah. All right. Interesting. Cool. Yeah, anything else, Cash?
I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about it more and more, right? Because it's like we've come up with all these methods to when two computers want to communicate with each other to verify with like handshakes and RSA and all this cool stuff. But like, if you're a human and another human, what's our verification process there aside from like, hey, what's the word of the day? It's like, pink jello. Be like, cool. There has to be something, but yeah, food for thought. I don't know. No, nothing else. I'll stop talking.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Manfred. If you have any other cool stories or anything else that you want to share, please let us know. We'll do another episode. I'm sure everyone enjoyed that listened. And any other cool recommendations before we go? Anything else that you want to say? Any shout outs to homies?
Yeah, shout out to the Tevora team for always, they're always behind me doing the physical and social engineering research. So it's cool of you guys. There's some blog posts that I've released about physicals specifically, and that's on the Threat blog. So it's just threat.tevora.com. And yeah, scope it out. But thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, rock on. Thanks for joining us. We'll be sure to share your links where you can check out this Threat blog and all that good stuff. For our two listeners, thanks for listening. As always, if you are still listening, hit us up. Find Matt, find myself. We'll send you something cool. If you have any recommendations on guests, please let us know. And with that said, I guess that's all I got. Till next time.